What's up, everybody? Cobra here. So today I wanted to go through just like a baseline kind of setup for getting Tumbleweed up and ready to go for gaming. Um, I've talked about this in the past that I was going to be doing something like this. There's a lot more things you can do with it. I just want to take you through a generic, hey, this is what like I need to do at a bare minimum to get going on OpenSUSE for gaming. As you can see here, I'm using the new Agama installer. So currently, OpenSUSE actually has two installers that you can use to install it. It has the original Yast installer, which you can get from their website. You also have the Agama installer, which is the new one that's currently in development. Both are still fine. They work relatively the same. If you want a more stable experience, quote unquote, I would say probably use the Yast one, so the one from their website, because this one is being actively developed. It is a very much a work in progress, but I've been using it. I like it. You know, it's getting there. There's still a lot more features in the other one that haven't been implemented into this one yet, but it's still solid. I'm going to show you. It's very easy. It's very easy to get everything set up and going. So on this Agama installer, you have three options to choose from. You have Micro OS, you have Tumbleweed, and you have Slow Roll. So Micro OS is one of their atomic versions. If you like atomic desktops, I would look at that. Tumbleweed is the mainline version, I guess you can say. It's the rolling release of it. And then you have Slow Roll, which is kind of a hybrid between Tumbleweed and Leap. Leap is the sort of one-to-one clone of SUSE Linux, which is their enterprise. It's very stable. Think of it kind of like SUSE's version of Debian in a way. Slow Roll is a cool project. It's kind of like a little bit of a hybrid of the two. You still get rolling packages, but and security updates throughout the month, from what I've been told. I've never used it, but you get only like big updates and stuff like that roughly once to twice a month. So it's kind of a nice hybrid between like you still get rolling stuff, but it's not as rolling. So it's a little bit more stable, I guess you could say, but than you would think of rolling. But for this one, I'm going to do Tumbleweed. So let's select that. As far as creating the media to do the Agama installer itself, or even the Yast one, there is a ton of videos out there on YouTube as to how to create an installation media, whether you're on Windows, whether you're on Linux, whether you're on Mac, whatever. I'm doing this one in a VM because I don't want to destroy my current system. But so if you need to learn how to do that, to put it onto you can put the ISO onto a USB. There's a ton of different videos out there showing you how to do that. Once you get back in here, so you can set here under system, you can set your host name if you want, or if it's in like I think this is for more of a, like a enterprise environment kind of thing where it's going to be more changing and stuff. But I always like to set a static one. So I'm just going to say like SUSE VM or something like that. I always leave the time synchronization surface here on default, but you can, if you have custom ones that you want to do, go for it. And we just click accept and go back to the installation summary. Next, I want to do language and region here. So my language is English US, same with keyboard. And then for my time zone, you can change it to whatever you want. I am in the Eastern time zone, which is New York. So I'm going to change that to New York. And then click OK. And we'll click up here on installation to go back to the main page. For network, if you would like to set up your network, I'm using a wired connection. But if you have Wi-Fi and you want to pre-configure the Wi-Fi, you would do that in here. It's really easy. You just click on it, enter your info, go for it. Software is where we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, as they say. Here you can select your desktop environment. Currently, they offer a few different options. So you have GNOME, KDE, XFCE, OpenSUSE, which is their spin that people create of Sway, the tiling window manager. Then you also have Hyperland. The IceWM basic desktop is more of like a graphical server install. It gives you a very, very minimal desktop environment that's kind of usable. I've never really messed with it too much, but it's like to give you a base to then install things on top of that. Maybe you want a desktop environment that's not listed here, Cinnamon, Budgie, etc., right? But for this one, I'm just going to use KDE. KDE is very popular. XFCE and GNOME are both very popular as well. Window managers, they're their own flavor. If you like window managers, use a window manager. That's up to you. But for this, we're just going to choose KDE. We'll click accept. And then you also have the additional patterns, which is kind of like the groups of applications that's going to install. So by default, it uses SE Linux. You can switch it back over to AppArmor if you'd like, but I like using SE Linux. If you'd like the multimedia and office software to install, you can click those on. I will just leave those on for now as is. In the YAST installer, there's a lot more modular ability, I guess is the word, for you to be able to go and choose exactly which software is being installed. Like I said, this one is still in active development, so they're working on it currently. I have my storage for my virtual device, and we'll set up our user here under authentication. So if you would like a root user, you can create a root user here. You do it either with a password or SSH key or something like that. But I'm just going to create a regular user. We'll just say Cobra, and we'll do a super secret password. Enter it again. You can here enter the SSH public key. As you see, it says optional, so it's not necessary. I've never used it, but if you want to use it, go for it. Then we're going to click accept. It says the changes were applied successfully. We'll go back to the main page. So you can see here, we've went into all of these. So all we need to do now is install, and we'll go ahead and click install, and I will see you guys back when it is finished. All right. So it looks like it's finishing up here. Unmounting the devices, so we should be good to go here in a second. Like I said, there's many more things that you can do when setting up for gaming. You know, many different little tweaks and everything that you can do. However, I'm just trying to give you like a simple base to get you in, and then once you want to get to like into the weeds and everything, you can go from there. I'm using GNOME boxes for my VM. It's simple, it's easy, it works. That's what I like to do. So that's what I'm using. I love Tumbleweed. Like I was saying before, it is a rolling distro. However, it does roll a little bit behind some of the more faster rolling distros, like a similar to like Arch. You know, Arch gets stuff like the exact second that it comes out. Tumbleweed usually will lag behind about a week as far as that stuff goes. Oops, put in the wrong password. And it happens. All right. So we're launching in here to the KDE desktop environment. So we'll check the settings real quick just to see. I gotta turn it to dark mode. Sorry. Light mode gives me a headache. As you can see, we're running Plasma 6.7. You know, we're using Wayland. Kernel is 7.0.12-1. And we're running in a VM currently. All right. So as you know, with KDE, there's many different settings that you can go in and set. I'm just going to go through a couple of them. So if you are on here, so it'll be a little bit different. It'll show whatever mice you have set up. If you want pointer acceleration, then just leave this on. But I know pointer acceleration, especially for shooting games, is a big thing that a lot of people like to turn off. So uncheck this and then click apply if you want to do that. So I'm going to do that. So that way you have a consistent movement. There's an accessibility feature right there that if you, in KDE, if you jiggle the mouse, then it'll pop up. Okay. The first thing I always like to do when downloading, especially OpenSUSE, is first thing I like to do is to get the the multimedia third-party codecs. In order to do that, if you've ever used Arch has their AUR. On OpenSUSE that they have something called the Open Build Service, or OPI is how you would download it. So you go sudo zipper install, or you can actually abbreviate a lot of the stuff on OpenSUSE. So you can say a sudo zipper in OPI. And I'm going to throw a few other things in there too. I'm going to throw Steam, Heroic Games Launcher, Lutris, and Proton Plus. And we'll enter our password. And we'll let that install. So there's, I'm just giving you like the basic of the basic stuff here to get going. I will show you if you want to use the built-in Steam one, or if you want to use MangoHud for your like FPS display and things like that. I'll show you how to set that up as well. There's some other things that you can do, like to further tinker if you would like, you know, set up schedulers, things like that. That's personal preference. If you're trying to squeeze every little ounce of performance out of your system, then go for it. If not, it's really, the performance is kind of negligible in my opinion. It's not anything too crazy, but it does make a little bit of a difference. So if it's something that you're really interested in, then I can do a video on that too. It's not very difficult. During this time, you could tinker with some of the system settings while things are downloading. You know, maybe you want to set up your display a little bit differently, you know, or maybe it's at like a lower refresh rate. It's only at 60 and you want it at, you know, 165 or 240 or whatever it is, right? Go in here, check with Bluetooth, or set up your printer or whatever it may be. Plasma is a solid desktop environment. GNOME is great too. I used the GNOME for a long time. I know a lot of people, especially those coming over from Windows or even Mac, really prefer Plasma because it gives you kind of a similar type style, but it gives you that freedom to be able to fully, and I mean fully, customize like just about everything in here. You can set up your screen locking, so I'm gonna choose that for right now. So that way we're not doing that. Go in here and set up your users when software updates go off and everything like that. So I always like, especially on KDE, or really any desktop environment, I like to be the one to handle when the updates are. So I always set it to manual. I turn the notifications off because I myself always like to check, and then I always like to do it after rebooting. As you can see here, it says it recommends to maximize the stability. So what that'll do is it won't actually apply the updates until after you restart. So even if you go in and do a sudo update, that kind of thing, you know, you're good to go. But so we'll click apply and we'll exit out of here. So normally the first thing, like when you're installing a new system, is to run updates. However, with this being a network installer, it was already downloading the most recent updates for everything, so that's why I didn't run any type of updates or anything. But we now have the Open Build Service installed, we have Steam installed, Heroic Games Launcher, and Lutris, and Proton Plus. So the first thing I want to do is, like I mentioned, I want to get my codecs. So we're going to put OPI codecs right here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And all right, so we do OPI codecs. We hit enter. It's going to ask which ones you want to, if you want to install from the Pacman repository. Yes, we do. So I'm going to hit enter. I always like to do, for me at least, the first FTP server. I have the best experience with it, the most experience, the best track record, I guess you could say. It's on a 1 hour sync. So I always like to do number one there. Enter. Going to import this specific package key, so we'll hit yes because it's linking it to the Pacman repositories. So just one other kind of small caveat: the Pacman that it's discussing here is different than the Arch Linux Pacman. That's PAC man. This is PACK man. It's a little bit different. So we're installing are third-party codecs, and it's changing the vendor on a few different ones. There is some things you can do to, if you find that you don't want them to change vendor and you want them to stay to the traditional OpenSUSE repos, you can do that too. There's options for you to be able to do that. So for right now, we are just installing our codecs. They should be done here in a few minutes. Getting GStreamer, FFmpeg, the VLC codecs, all that good stuff. Yes, we want to install the OpenH264. Yeah, highly recommend that you install these. So whenever I install something big like this, or as you can see from this line right here, some of the programs that we're running, you will need to reboot them to get them to benefit from the latest updates. So whenever I install something that says that, I always like to do a sudo reboot real quick. So let's go ahead and restart that. We'll boot back in. All right, we got our SDDM session here. So one difference that OpenSUSE has actually currently from some of the other distros, they still actually have a X11 session. Most of the other ones only allow you to do Wayland now, but OpenSUSE you still can do the X11 session. So first thing, got under games, you got Lutris, you got Heroic, Lutris, Proton Plus, and you got Steam, of course. So pop open Lutris, and I'll pop open Heroic Games Launcher. Click out of that. Okay, so Lutris is great for Windows games and specific games that maybe need different scripts and everything, as far as different stores and things like that, or if maybe you had a disk that you want to install or something like that, it's great. There's a lot of people that have created install scripts using Lutris. So like one that worked for a long time but does not anymore is League of Legends. That was actually how I played League of Legends for a long time on here. It does not work anymore because of their new Vanguard anti-cheat that Riot Games implemented. But you would just click whatever one you want, whichever server or install script you want to use, and then you would install it. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. There is a website that you can go to check out all of the different ones that they have. You have to, of course, if it's a paid game, you have to have like a license key, a login, things like that for that game to be able to play it. Heroic falls under the same category kinda, but Heroic is the best way to get GOG, so Good Old Games, and Epic Games Launcher, and actually Amazon. I've never really used the Amazon games, so I can't really comment on that, but I love GOG. GOG is great if you want DRM games or DRM free games, where you don't require an internet connection, everything is local. GOG is great. Stands for Good Old Games. It's great app. Great app, great store. It works fantastically. The other thing I wanted to show you real quick is Steam. Everybody knows Steam. Oops, wrong con. Is Proton Plus. So if you've been on Linux for a while, or if you're brand new, you might have heard of custom Proton versions. So Valve created their version of Proton. Other people have then come and taken that and then built off of that as well with some other like different fixes and things like that. The big one is Proton GE. It's fantastic. Glorious Eggroll does a great job. He is also the creator and like head maintainer of Nobara Linux. The other one that has really popped up recently is CachyOS. So if you want to use their version of Proton, you can do that here. There's some other ones down here as well. If you want to dive into those, go for it. So this is how you would install your custom Protons. So if I want to download Proton GE, if I want a very specific instance of it, like maybe I want 10-11, we'll click download. It'll download for Lutris because I have Lutris installed. Or maybe as well, maybe I want that one for a specific game, but overall I just want to get the latest one. So you can also download the latest one. So you have the static one, but then you also, whenever you launch it, if there's a new version, the latest one will update to whatever the latest version is. I believe it's 11 now. Yeah, 11-1 is the new one. All right, so we got those installed. So as far as apps and everything goes, that's like a kind of a great starting point. I'm gonna hop back over out of the VM to my local install and show you guys just like a couple little tips and everything to get stuff set up. All right, so we're here in Steam. I just open the Steam settings to show you a few different things. I like to set 24-hour clock. If you don't like it, go for it. You know, use the 12-hour clock. That's up to you. I also like to have my startup location set to the library. By default, it's set to the store. I just like it on library. That's just me. The next thing I always like to change is I always like to go under downloads. And if I remember correct, this one is turned on by default, the display download rate in bits. So I like to turn that off. I like to turn everything off under here. The big one is the enable shader pre-caching. So what that will do is it'll cache it in real time if you have it unchecked. Otherwise, it'll cache everything beforehand. If you have like a newer system, something in the last, I'd say probably 5 to 8 years, you should be fine turning this off. But if you have maybe an older system and you want to, you know, process those beforehand, you can turn both of these settings on and this should be fine. But most any new system, you're going to be fine just leaving these off. Next is going to be your storage. So it's going to show all of your different games under here. If you'd like to maybe have like a separate drive that you want to mount, you would go under here and do that. So you can click add drive and it'll show you, you know, it'll allow you to select the different spots where you can mount your drives and stuff like that. Next thing is going to be the in-game. So if you like your like performance stuff showed up at top, so you can see like your FPS and things like that. So Steam actually has a built-in one now that you can do. So you can set it, you know, where you want it, you know, top left, center, right, etc., etc. You can turn a key on to like toggle the performance. You can have, you know, different things. So you have like just FPS, FPS plus details, and then like some other things between like your utilizations and things like that. Totally up to you how you like to set that up. I'll show you my preferred way here in just 1 minute that I like to do it. For compatibility, so if you want to set a Steam-wide compatibility for every single one of your games, I like to use the experimental Proton by default. And then for any games that maybe I want to try to get squeeze a little bit extra performance, or maybe I'm having some issues getting it to run, I'll then swap that individual game over to like Proton GE or Proton Cache OS or something like that. As far as the rest of the stuff, it's generic Steam. It works exactly like Steam does any other place. So the next thing that I like to do, and I'll show you here, is I like to use Mango Juice to set up my MangoHud. So on certain games, you like to have maybe some more other information you see. There's way more things that you can set on here versus the other one. I like to just use Mango Juice. It's what I've used for a while. You know, it gives you a lot of different settings and more tinkering as far as like the different things that you can choose. I always like to turn on the load color, VRAM, temperature, for all that stuff. As well as the FPS and then the color FPS. And then I choose the size here. So you can choose like, you know, the different like position and the color of the different, you know, layouts and things like that. So lots of tinkering, lots of ability in here. Now, once you've set everything in here that you want to set, you're going to go in here to the hamburger menu, as they call it, and just click save. You can also go down here to change order, and you can change the order of, you know, if you have 2 or 3 different things here, maybe I want FPS on the top, then I would change FPS to the top, but I like this layout here, so that's the way I leave it. After that, after everything's done, go under here, click save, and that will save your configuration. Now, in order to use that configuration within Steam, we're going to pull up old Deep Rock Galactic here. I love Deep Rock Galactic. So what you have to do is you're going to right click, go into properties, or you can also do that by clicking here on the cogwheel. That will also open like you right clicked, and then you can click properties there. Here is where you can add launch options. So a couple launch options that I would recommend to you is game mode. So you would add game mode run, and then MangoHud. So game mode is a daemon that runs in the background that kind of adds more priority to your game. So you're going to get better performance, etc., etc. That's the one I like to use. There's a bunch of different ones out there. There's Falcon, GameScope works similarly, you know, all that kinds of stuff. I like game mode. I use what works for me. That's what works for me. MangoHud is how I'm going to get the FPS information, you know, all that kind of stuff up top. And then at the end, you always have to add %, command, %. You have to have this, otherwise none of the commands will work. There are some other things that you can set. Valve has documentation on all of the different launch options you can do, etc., etc. If maybe you needed to set maybe I was trying to run Deep Rock. Deep Rock runs great, but like hypothetically, let's say I was trying to run Deep Rock Galactic. It was giving me some issues. I wanted to set a custom Proton. You would do that here under compatibility. So you would click the force to use a specific Steam Play compatibility tool, and then you can go in here and choose whichever one that you had installed. Yeah, Proton GE, maybe you wanted to try and use, you know, certain games, they require like older ones. So like, I believe it was Once Human, when I first started playing that, it would only run on Proton 9. So I had to use Proton 9. So it's whatever works, tinker with it, see what works for you. Deep Rock works great without it, so I'm just going to leave it like that. We'll exit out here. All right, so we're going to run Monster Hunter here. Deep Rock's a great game. I mess with that from time to time. So we'll just show you how MangoHud and everything pops open here. Any and all games are going to work great just about, unless we've already discussed, you know, which ones are working, which ones are not, that kind of thing. As you can see, while it's loading, the FPS information and stuff that I set in MangoJuice is listed up here. And I'll go ahead and click through so you can get just an example of that. But yeah. So the final thing that I wanted to discuss is perhaps you were trying to run a game, it's not running right. You need to figure out, hey, maybe I need to add me some launch options in there in Steam like I showed you to help get the game working. Maybe I need to try to do like a custom Proton or something like that. A fantastic site is going to be ProtonDB. ProtonDB is great. So let's say you were trying to play Resident Evil, if I could spell. Maybe you're trying to play Resident Evil 4. Okay, so you see it's got a gold rating, runs pretty good after some tweaks. Everything on here, if you've used ProtonDB, it shows you different ratings and stuff. But let's say I was trying to run Resident Evil 4, I was running into some funkiness. So we'll click into here. You can see other people that have ran the game, different things that they have done to get it working, or maybe not working, because there's a lot of ones in here that they just don't work. Sometimes they don't work, but maybe you wanted to only see ones that were running your type of system. So let's say I have an Intel, I have an AMD, a full AMD system, but I had an Intel CPU and an NVIDIA GPU, and I was running on Ubuntu. You could then save that for this one, or you could have it persist across the entire site, so you'll only see entries that are of your system that you're talking about. Or you can just leave it for this simple. Maybe you're looking up one for a friend or trying to help somebody troubleshoot or something like that. So you click save, and then, okay, so you can see 2 months ago, this person here was able to get it running using these launch options here. Other people are saying, maybe it crashed a little bit during a cutscene, but this person, runs great. And that was from a couple of years ago. The other great site to use is Are We Anti-Cheat Yet? If maybe you're trying to play a game that has anti-cheat built in, there are plenty of games that have anti-cheat that work great on Linux. As you can see, Halo Master Chief Collection works great. Back 4 Blood, I used to play that a lot. There's a number of games that work with anti-cheat on Linux. They work great. Dead by Daylight is a prime example. It used to not work. Now it works great. However, there are a number of games that have anti-cheat that do not work. A la Fortnite, so a lot of the newer Battlefield games, Apex Legends, any of the Riot Games, so Valorant, League of Legends, things like that. Utilize these sites, utilize communities, all of that stuff. There's a plethora of games out there that run perfectly great on Linux. Destiny is denied, of course. Rust, because of their anti-cheat. Hunt Showdown runs great. 7 Days to Die. There's tons and tons of great games that run on Linux. There's tons of games that you can get up and going with very minimal, if any, tinkering whatsoever. It's all about how you're wanting to set everything up. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Do all the YouTube stuff down below. If you'd like more, go ahead and subscribe. Maybe you want to see a video on how to mount an additional Steam library. I can do stuff like that. Just let me know down in the comments, and we will see you next time.